And I have with me Eric Pratt, the CEO of US Broadcast and also the brains behind Virtual Setworks.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, my pleasure. Actually, this virtual set we're in today, I'm just going to go ahead and zoom out so we can show this off, is actually the work of Eric Pratt in Virtual Setworks. Take a look at this. I mean, it's really interesting. Sometimes people forget. Look at this, reflections on the ground. This is actually where I am. I am sitting in a boardroom with a green screen, but that's not very cool, is it? That's not very fun. It doesn't look very professional. This looks a lot better. So we've got a lot to talk about today. Zoom video conferencing has just introduced green screen virtual set support. So that's really awesome. And I'm going to go over a couple slides here, and then we're going to introduce Eric, and he's going to talk a little bit about kind of how the professionals are using this technology, which I think is really cool. So first of all, last week we donated $20 to the National Forest Association, which planted 10 trees. And our president has allowed us to give $20 to a different charity every week, plus $1 for every new subscriber or like we get during the live show. So if you're out there, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. You're going to be adding $1 extra to our donation to CASA, which is the court-appointed special advocates for children. This week, we're going to be giving the donation to the Susquehanna Valley CASA Voices for Children. It helps children in need who need someone who, basically when the courts kind of have to take over and help a child in need, they help them in that way. So feel free to participate in that. We're really happy to do charity every week. So Virtual Setworks, Eric, tell us about this. What is Virtual Setworks?
So Virtual Setworks provides virtual set backgrounds. Anytime that you're doing a chroma key and you're pretending you're somewhere else, like we're doing today, you're doing a virtual set. And the ranges of application for this vary from, as in the extreme end, movie production that's done on a green screen is loosely definable as a virtual set. Very commonly, when you're watching the news these days, they're not on a real set. They're doing it just like they do the weather. So instead of putting the weather behind them, they're putting a virtual news desk just like the one that you're seeing there. Commercials, webcasts, corporate, educational, there's a broad array of applications for virtual sets today. They're also called virtual studios, and sometimes they're a little bit confused with virtual reality studios, which VR is an emerging topic, which does blend a little bit with virtual sets, but typically in most conversations we discuss the displaying of a virtual set on a 2D surface.
Cool. Yeah, and we're going to make the argument today that once you go green, you're not going to want to go back. This is a little picture of me at my desk. I have a stand-up desk and a little green screen that we purchased for about $50 on Amazon. And so most people think about this, are we doing some type of live broadcasting? Yes, we are. But just this week, or I think it was last week, Zoom video conferencing has built in support for virtual backgrounds, making me think that this is something that's going to go mainstream. They have millions and millions of users around the globe. Now they're giving that technology to them without the need for any additional software. So we're going to talk about how, people in sales, people who are in HR, CEOs of companies we've been talking to who are using this technology now just to stand out, just to change things up. And especially if you're anyone out there in sales, spicing up that first introductory meeting, the first impressions are everything. To be able to put the home team, sports team behind you when you're doing that first call is going to make you just stand out just a little bit more. So here's a little picture of, me. We kind of look at this sitting there in our boardroom with a green screen, but really to the world, it looks like I'm in a nice studio.
It is a way of upping your production value instead of looking like you're on in a crowded boardroom covered in a desk covered with cables. It looks like you're in a professional environment. And it's also great for bringing in elements. You can see that we're bringing in pictures, graphics. These things all go well in a virtual context. Now, virtual sets don't necessarily have to be as complex as the one that you see there. These are primarily what we deal with at Virtual Setworks, but sets can also be as simple as a very simple background or looping animation. So there's there's a wide spectrum of both feature set and budget. If you feel a set like this is too complex looking for your taste, and you're not trying to convey a grand sense like what we have when Paul goes out to the wide shot, we're doing that establishing shot saying, hey, we're somewhere really cool, we have high production values. If you're looking for something a little bit more sedate, those are also options for doing boardroom production.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and I guess I will kind of just move over to one that's a little different here. Here I am in kind of like a classroom style, I got flowers on my desk type of thing, because it really doesn't matter. I mean, we have a lot of different sets we'll show you, and we're going to give away free virtual sets to somebody out there today. And whoever tells the funniest joke about green screens in the chat is going to get the free virtual set pack. So let's talk about that home office application, because you're at your home now, and I think just the fact, you're not even using your green screen, but just the fact that you have a clear background that's not all messed up. Let's do an overlay of just you for a second here. Take a look at that. I mean,
this is my Chromat background, but it's currently unlit. It's for doing chroma keying, but I just threw it behind me so that whatever's behind me doesn't distract from your view. You're focused on me.
Yeah, and there's so many people who work from home who are using video conferencing to collaborate with people. And, we don't want to see your cat behind you. We don't want to see things that are going to be distracting. You want to focus. You do want the power of face-to-face meetings because, being over the phone all the time, I mean, especially if you meet with a lot of people, you can't remember everybody. But putting a face to a name has so much power. So that video conferencing collaboration is what I want to focus on here. So really quickly, what I'll do is I'll show, for all of you guys out there who use Zoom video conferencing, I very quickly wanted to show you guys how this works now. So basically, in the Zoom client here, if you guys are used to this, and Eric will talk about a way to do this with any video conferencing software, but just specifically to Zoom, if you enable it in your, you have a pro account and you enable video backgrounds, you can see here that there is a new setting for video backgrounds, and you can actually choose a picture that you want. So you can go ahead and choose any picture you want, and you can see I'm kind of going between San Francisco Bay to the space and all those different things, and then when you launch your video conference call, it's got you in the background there. So just really briefly, so I would expect to see that in Skype. I would expect to see that in GoToMeeting and WebEx. Zoom usually kind of leads the market there, and I expect to see a lot more of this coming soon for sure. So Eric, why don't you tell us, a lot of people use GoToMeeting, some people use WebEx, some people use Skype. From what I understand, vMix is a great way to be able to get these virtual sets into any web conferencing solution.
Yeah, so we're using vMix today in order to do this virtual set composite. vMix is capable of doing some really incredible virtual sets. It has the ability to do those reflections. You saw the camera move earlier. It's what's putting me in the screen here. It's also capable of taking this and streaming it to any destination. But it's also capable of plugging into any program and appearing like a webcam. So I'm taking it that's probably how you're using it today. If you go into Zoom conferencing and you select the camera in there, it'll show up as vMix external, for example, and you would select that, and that's what you would take the output of vMix and whatever production that you're, whatever production that you're doing there, whether it's you're showing slides or videos or yourself on a virtual set, is what's going to plug into Zoom. And the same is true for many different conferencing applications, GoToMeeting, TeamViewer, GoToWebinar, Skype even. So you can plug into any of these programs because the vMix shows up like it's a webcam.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I mean, I could do a quick little desktop capture just to show everyone what vMix looks like, because I think it's a new thing for a lot of people, and it might look a little complicated because I'm really doing a lot of overkill stuff here. But if you can see what I'm talking about here, here's our virtual set right down here at the top here, and I can click these buttons and zoom in to different presets. So you can see that's kind of like my layout. I can have a zoomed out effect, and in the right hand side, while you're seeing all those buttons and everything, that's because that is the desktop capture. But that's how it works, and then you just click this external button down here, and then you can actually take this into any video conferencing software, whether it be Skype or GoToMeeting or WebEx. So I guess I wanted to show off a couple different virtual sets because I did prepare a few just for different reasons.
No, I like this one. Let's stay here.
Well, this is the one that you made. And here's a couple that I've just made, very basic stuff. This is one for our partner webinar. And one of the things I wanted to show is that vMix just makes it so easy to move things around. Like, for example, if I take my foreground, I can actually move this around to get it exactly where I need it. So the power to be able to do that really makes it almost easy for anyone with a little Photoshop skills to create a basic virtual set. Now, you're not going to be able to probably make a virtual set that looks like this, something that Eric put together with all this VU mapping and everything, but you can make stuff like, for example, I made this one for a church that I was working with, and I wanted to make one for the pastor so that he could make a really cool presentation of his latest upcoming community events that they were planning. We were working with another school where we decided to make this one, and this one was for a teacher. So the teacher who was doing a lot of meetings with students that weren't in class. It's called kind of like after class hours, like where they have the ability to have a virtual classroom and they can answer questions and video conference with students between the hours of, let's say, 5 and 7. And she had a busy office, a lot of space, a lot of crap behind her, cables and books and things. And she found that by putting in the green screen, the students were really going to be able to focus and look at something like that. So that's just a couple virtual sets I put together. I'll just show you one more. This is a giant boardroom that we have. And of course, all of these virtual sets we're going to give away to one person. Somebody out there who has the funniest joke about during the live stream, during the live chat, we did get one like, so that's $1 extra for our donation. Thank you guys. So Eric, I want to continue to stay in our really cool broadcast space that we have here. What else should we talk about, Eric?
Why don't we talk about your cameras?
That's a good point. That is a very good point. And actually, that totally reminds me that not only are we supposed to be talking about the cameras, but what are the tips we can give people? Because I've had so many people call up, say, we want to do a live show, we want to have a green screen, but we're getting like staticky fuzz around us. And the chroma key is not working perfectly. And I tell them, well, do good lighting or do this or do that. Do you have any tips for people who are setting up a green screen?
I do, actually. And this goes back when you were saying that they're getting noise around it. But back in the day, before Component and SDI, we all worked with Composite. And a lot of times people would come to me and say, I'm doing a virtual set, but it looks like I have bees around me. And that's the good way of knowing that they're using Composite, because the chrominance and luminance were interleaved with each other, and it created an effect like you have swarming bees around you, which is one of my favorite old school problems. And then YC came along, and I don't know if any of you remember that, but it was a big step up where the chrominance and luminance were separated. And then that was a big improvement in terms of quality of the chroma key, because the color had its own pair of wires, so to speak. And then Component obviously was a really big step up because of the luminance. Another name for Component is YUV, and the Y is the luminance, just like in YC. And the U and the V is actually 2 channels for color. And then along came SDI, which is still around today. And SDI is short for Serial Digital Interface, and it's a way of conveying the data faithfully from the camera to the chroma keying device. And that actually was, believe it or not, so faithful that the edges on a chroma key were actually a tad sharp. And people, in a lot of cases, preferred the component input. But SDI being the way that people do production today, and looping in and out and in and out and over again without any loss, is really the ideal way of getting your signal in. A second best, or arguably equally as good, is HDMI. And a lot of cameras have HDMI. So the two are really good options. That's going to help a lot with your noise. The next step along the road, a lot of people, they look at our virtual sets and they call me up and they say, what can I do to, which one of these sets looks the most realistic? And I tell people generally that's in the eye of the beholder, but the biggest influencing thing in that regard is not the set. The most impactful thing in terms of the believability of whether the set that you're seeing is real or not has entirely to do with the lighting. If you light the talent for the set that they're in, subconsciously the mind will accept it better. When you're watching a movie and they're doing green screen, they take excruciating care to light the talent and make sure that, you know, if there's a strong light in the background, there's a strong light here. So they're trying to match the lighting. And if you do a good job of that, it's better than anything that you can do in terms of set background. Lighting is also important. People still have a hard time getting an evenly lit background. Getting a nice chrominant, bright green, evenly lit, no shadows is the best way to make sure that you're not going to have noisy stuff floating around. So those are some tips and a little walk down memory lane. I haven't talked about composite and YC in a very long time, so that was refreshing for me.
Well, thank you, Eric, and thank you everyone who's been giving us likes and subscribes. If you're just tuning in, we are donating actually to the Susquehanna Valley CASA this week. So we're giving $20 for every live show and then an additional $1 for every like or subscribe. 5 of you have already liked. Thank you so much. We're up to $25 for the donation, which makes us feel good. I have some quick tips to add to that, Eric. One thing I noticed is that you don't want to have the sharpness up on your camera too high, right? If you take down the sharpness, a little bit of a softer feel, I feel like that removes some of the noise and the graininess. One of the other things that you can play with is the contrast. Make sure you get that contrast just right, and there's brightness and things like that. But one of the easiest ways, because I've talked to customers who said they've tried everything. You know, they've tried the lighting, they tried this, they tried that, they tried another thing. Use a dark virtual set or a dark background. Because the things that you're trying to hide are these little black dots and these little gray dots and everything. If you have a gray or a black background, you're not going to be able to see those as well as just a white. You know, if you're trying to do like the Apple iTunes completely white background, it's going to show it much more. So that was just another simple tip on how to improve your settings. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been our show. We only go for 20 minutes and we started a little late, so I apologize for that. But we really appreciate your time, everybody. Thank you so much. Please subscribe if you feel like this kind of information is useful for you. We really hope to do this all the time. So thanks so much. Jens was asking about the software we were using. So it's called vMix. It's a really great software. Eric's the guy to talk to. My email address is paul.richards@huddlecamhd.com. Email me if you ever want to be on the show or you have more questions. What's your email address, Eric?
It's eric@virtualsetworks.com. And if you're looking for vMix, that's vmix.com. And if you're looking for the virtual sets, the main virtual set that we saw here behind Matt today, that's at virtualsetworks.com, and all of the rest of them could be gotten through HuddleCam.
Thank you so much for being part of this today, Eric. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.
Bye, everyone.